Hello, everyone. Welcome to CodeHawk's Kickoff. Today we have Stake.link joining us to our upcoming contest coming up in CodeHawk in the next few days. So please welcome to the stage, Christian. Christian, if you want to introduce yourself, tell us a bit about you, what you do at Stake.link. I'm sure everyone here would love to know.
Sure. So I'm the lead Solidity dev at Stake.link. Um, so yeah, I designed most of these contracts. Um, yeah, not much else to say really. I'm looking forward to getting this audit kicked off.
Nice. Thank you so much for sharing. So let's kick it right off. Tell us a bit about Stake.link. How does the protocol work and what does it do?
Sure. So Stake.link is a liquid staking protocol with a primary focus on Chainlink staking. However, our contracts can be easily extended to support other types of staking. Um, we do have contracts deployed on Ethereum mainnet right now. And I guess I can give an overview, I guess, of our current staking architecture.
I would love that.
So yeah, there's a handful of contracts we have deployed on Ethereum mainnet at the moment. The most important, I would say, would be the staking pool. And the staking pool is a pool that accepts an asset token and then mints a liquid staking token. So specifically, what we have deployed right now is St.link. So the pool would accept link tokens and then mint St.link. And connected to the staking pool are a series of what we call strategy contracts. And the staking pool basically will deposit the link tokens into these contracts. And then each strategy will earn yield in its own way. So currently we have two strategies. One is the community staking pool for Chainlink, and the other deposits into the operator staking pool for Chainlink. I could go into more detail here, but I guess I'll leave it at that. The other contract we have is the priority pool, which is the single contract that users interact with. So users will deposit their link into the priority pool, which will then deposit into the staking pool. And what's interesting about the priority pool is that it essentially queues link tokens to be staked into the staking pool when space opens up, because space in Chainlink staking is limited. And yeah, I guess that's a good overview.
Nice. Thank you so much, Christian. And by the way, if at any point you want to share your screen, show us some stuff around, I'm sure everyone would appreciate it to have a bit of a visual also about these topics that you're sharing. Now, you mentioned a lot of different topics as you were going through the architecture. And so I'd love to take a bit of an opportunity to dive in deeper into some of these. So potentially, let's start with just staking as a whole. Maybe take us through what's the difference between liquid staking, delegated staking, and how these are used within your protocol and architecture.
Sure. So I'll explain these in the context of Chainlink staking, because that's what we do. So in the current design of Chainlink staking, like I said, there were two pools, a community pool and an operator pool. And the operator staking pool is obviously for Chainlink node operators. And each Chainlink node operator was given an allocation of 75,000 link. So regular staking would be if I was a node operator and I just staked link into my 75,000 allocation. Delegated staking would be if I was not the node operator, but I staked into their 75,000 link allocation. And then liquid staking is the same as delegated staking. However, we mint a liquid staking token Stake.link, which represents the user's stake position. So what we do is, I suppose, both delegated and liquid staking.
Nice. And so potentially from what I'm hearing from you then is that depending on who the user is, you're using a different pool, right? You've mentioned, for example, priority pools, reward pools, node operator pools, community pools. What should auditors be keeping in mind as they're going through these pools as they regard to the staking?
So I should have explained probably the other half of our architecture that is not deployed, because the part that's not deployed is really what this audit is about. So let me just go through that and then I'll get to your question. So, right, the part or the scope of this audit really is on the second half of our protocol, which is not the liquid staking part. So there's two halves really. There's the liquid staking part, and then there's the staking of our native token, SDL, or sorry, our protocol token, SDL. So basically users can stake SDL and receive certain benefits across the protocol. The two main ones being receiving a portion of protocol rewards, and the second one being receiving priority access in the priority pool. So basically your link would be staked before people who don't hold SDL. So yeah, I'll just go over the contracts related to that.
Yeah, sounds good.
So the main contract for that would be the SDL pool.
And Christian, if you want to show this, I'm sure everyone would love to just see a bit of what you're referring to as you speak.
Sure. Like I don't have any diagrams, but
that's fine. Just code or whatever. If you have anything available, anything.
I mean, I could show like the contracts themselves, but I'm not sure how useful that would be. So I guess I'll just continue.
Okay, sounds good.
So yeah, we have and all this is available, by the way, on the CodeHawks contest page. So yeah, the main contract would be the SDL pool. And this is the contract that people will stake their SDL into. And when a user stakes their SDL into this pool, they'll receive an RESDL NFT that represents their stake position. And a user can choose to lock their SDL for a certain period of time, which will give like a boost to their staked balance, which we call their effective RESDL balance. And this is the balance that's used to determine how much benefit a user receives, like the amount of rewards they receive and the amount of their link that will be staked through the priority pool. So yeah, we have an SDL pool currently on Ethereum mainnet. But the scope of this audit is about making the SDL pool cross-chain using Chainlink's CCIP. So the idea is we will continue to have the SDL pool on ETH mainnet, but then we will also have an SDL pool on the other chains that we plan to support, currently Arbitrum and likely Optimism. So basically, users will be able to stake on these secondary chains the same as they can stake on Ethereum mainnet and receive rewards, still receive the priority stake benefit in the priority pool. There are a handful of other contracts that interact with the SDL pools on both the primary and secondary chains. and they handle like CCIP updates between chains because we have to manage state between secondary and primary chains. Like pretty much it's like a hub and spoke model where the primary chain stores state for all the chains and kind of keeps everything consistent. Yeah, I could continue to talk, but I guess that's a decent overview.
Nice. Thank you so much for that context, also for bringing the CCIP portion and the chains that you're deployed on, and that you're looking to interact with your current mainnet contract. I think that's definitely helpful as we think of scope. Would love to dive in a bit more into the use of CCIP within your protocol. You mentioned that you'll be using these tokens cross-chain, except the state is being kept at mainnet specifically. Could you maybe speak a bit more about the tokens, what type of tokens you're staking, and also whether these are being burned, locked, minted across the different chains as they relate to the state being kept within mainnet?
Sure. So there are a few different tokens that will be cross-chain. There's SDL, obviously. That's pretty straightforward. It will just use CCIP as is, using a lock and mint model. There's also Stake.link, which is currently the token that SDL stakers receive rewards in. However, Stake.link will only exist as a wrapped token on secondary chains, which is wrapped Stake.link. So there is a contract actually that can facilitate the wrapping and unwrapping of that called the wrapped token bridge. That is in scope for this audit. And then the last token that will be cross-chain is the RESDL ERC 721s. So there is also a custom contract that handles the transfer of those called the RESDL token bridge. So I suppose for like the extent of the cross-chain token transfers are users can transfer SDL at their will as well as RESDL. And Stake.link will be transferred from the primary to secondary chains during reward distribution. So it will distribute to SDL stakers on the primary chain as well as SDL stakers on all of the secondary chains.
Nice. So would that mean then that we can say stake the link directly on the Ethereum mainnet, but yet get, say, the Stake.link, so the rewards of that staked token at whichever chain that we choose? Is that correct?
So SDL staking is separate from link staking, but that's pretty much true, except the token you stake would be SDL. So you could choose whatever secondary chain to stake your SDL that you want, and then still receive rewards from link staking on Ethereum mainnet.
Oh, okay, super nice. And what would be the role of, say, the rebasing tokens here? I know that this is something that came up a lot as I was diving into your docs.
Sure. So the staking pool, or Stake.link, that is the rebasing token. So pretty much when rewards are earned through the Chainlink staking, the token will rebase to reflect those rewards. So let's say you held like 10 Stake.link, and then the next reward update yielded 10% yield on the link, then the Stake.link balance in your wallet would just automatically increase to 11 Stake.link.
Nice, very interesting. Now, I'd like to dive in a bit, digest a bit more, and speak maybe a bit more holistically on those invariants that auditors should always keep in mind. As they're diving into the protocol, what are things that must always remain true within the scope of this audit?
Sure. So there's a few things that I could think of. The first would be I suppose I'll give some context for this. So as I'm sure most know, ERC 721s, they have a token ID. And the idea with this protocol was to keep the token ID consistent across all chains. So the primary chain will be like the single source of truth for token IDs, I suppose. So the invariant there would be, there should never be an RESDL token ID on any chain that's greater than the last lock ID stored in the primary SDL pool. Because pretty much when RESDL NFTs are minted on secondary chains, they send an update to the primary chain, which then sends an update back telling them what token IDs it can use to mint. The second invariant would be the total effective balance in any SDL pool should always be equal to the sum of all effective balances in that SDL pool. So that's just to say that the sum of the effective RESDL balance of all SDL stakers in an SDL pool, whether that's on a secondary or primary chain, should always be equal to the total effective RESDL balance that's stored in that SDL pool. And then the third one I could think of would be the effective balance of the primary SDL pool CCIP controller as stored in the primary SDL pool should always be equal to the sum of all entries in RESDL supply by chain. So that's basically just saying in the primary SDL pool CCIP controller, it keeps track of the total RESDL amounts on every secondary chain, and that the sum of all those amounts should always be equal to the effective balance of that controller in the primary SDL pool, because otherwise rewards will be distributed incorrectly between secondary chains.
Nice. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for that rundown. I'm sure that'll be super useful as auditors are looking through and playing with the state and the tests, which takes me into that next question. What kind of tests can auditors expect that the protocol already has?
Sure. So we have a test suite written in JavaScript. There is a test file for each contract being audited, and the test files contain unit tests for each function, as well as integration tests related to multiple functions, or more likely the interactions between contracts, because the contracts are all pretty interconnected.
Nice. Do you also have maybe some like CCIP mocks or any tests testing the integration between your functions and CCIP?
Yeah, there are a few fairly simple CCIP mocks in the repo, just to mock the CCIP on-ramp, CCIP off-ramp, and then I actually use the real CCIP router with those mocks.
Nice. I guess something to keep in mind there will certainly be that not only testing like the on-ramp and the off-ramp, but potentially even then transfer. I know that with CCIP specifically, it deals a lot with like the order of transactions, the state at which they're being sent over and executed. So potentially that's a great area to be looking into. Which brings me this next question, which is like, what are those most complex sections of the protocol that you think auditors should be watching over?
I mean, definitely the CCIP stuff. Like CCIP is interesting just because of its asynchronous nature. Like generally a lot of smart contract stuff is synchronous. So yeah, like there's a fair number of updates that are sent between the primary and secondary chains. So I think just making sure that state is consistent between the primary and secondary chains through CCIP is probably the biggest one.
All right, nice. So I see that we have some questions coming in from the audience. I want to get to those, but before we do that, Christian, could you take us through how to run this protocol locally for auditors who are coming in and will be testing this out in their own computers?
Sure. So it's quite simple. I could share my screen just to show the like the CodeHawks README.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, so you pretty standard. You're basically just going to run yarn to install the dependencies, run yarn compile to compile the contracts, and then run yarn test to run the test suite. We unfortunately don't have any deployment scripts at the moment, but if you want to get an idea of how the contracts are deployed and set up, then I would just go into the test files and see how they're set up in there.
Nice. Could we make it a bit bigger, Christian,
sure.
so that people in the audience can see? All right, nice.
Yeah.
So just through running those 3 commands, people will be able to get to run the project locally, correct?
Yep.
And if you're using JavaScript here, is it safe to assume this is created in Hard Hat?
It is, yes.
Okay, nice. Well, thank you so much, Christian, for this overview. This has been super helpful. We do have some questions from the audience, though, so would love to get into those. Zumba Zoom Zoom 57 is asking if you could explain a bit about all the tokens mentioned. So the ST-Link, the wrapped ST-Link, the SDL, and the re-SDL. Potentially with some of the differences between them and how they are used within your protocol.
Sure. So I'll start with SDL. Yeah, SDL is our protocol token. It's an ERC. Well, all these except RESDL actually are ERC 677 tokens, which, if you don't know, is just a standard ERC 20 token that has an additional transfer and call function, which basically just allows you to transfer to a contract and then call a function afterwards, so you don't have to approve, which is nice. But yeah, SDL is our protocol token, and its primary use is to stake into the SDL pool. And when you stake into the SDL pool, you will receive an RESDL ERC 721. And that ERC 721 is what will determine the amount of rewards you receive from the total protocol rewards distributed to that pool. And it will also determine the amount of benefit you receive in the priority pool. So I guess to give an example for that, let's say you had 10 RESDL, like a 10 RESDL total effective balance, and you had 10 links staked into the priority pool, and there was someone else who had also 10 link in the priority pool, but they did not have any RESDL. And then let's say 10 link space opened up in the staking pool, then your 10 link would be staked and the other person's link would not be staked because they did not hold any RESDL. And then if you both held RESDL, the amount of your link stake would be proportional to the amount that you hold compared to the other person. ST-Link is the rebasing liquid staking token for the protocol. So pretty much it just represents users' staked link balance, and that token will rebase periodically, which will increase the balance in your wallet based on the amount of rewards earned since the last update. Wrapped St.link is just a wrapped version of St.link, which is required because St.link will not exist on secondary chains. It will only exist as wrapped St.link. So if you're transferring St.link to a secondary chain, such as in the case of rewards, when they're transferred to secondary SDL pools, it will be wrapped before transferring over to the secondary chain.
Nice. Thank you for that overview. This actually brings us perfectly into our next question by Zumba Zoom Zoom 57, which says that if a person wants to stake SDL, then they do it only from Ethereum, or do they do it directly from another chain? And if they do it from another chain, then how is it managed on the source chain? So looking back at that state that's being held in mainnet, and how it correlates as these assets are being minted, locked, recorded across different chains.
Yeah, so SDL can be staked on Ethereum or on another secondary chain. And when it's staked on a secondary chain, or really any action that changes your effective RESDL balance on a secondary chain, it will be queued in that SDL pool. And then periodically an update will be sent to the primary chain that includes the total change in RESDL balance in that SDL pool, as well as the number of new RESDL NFTs to be minted. And then when the primary chain receives that CCIP message, it will check the current last token ID it has stored, and it will send back, before that, it will also update the total effective balance based on the effective balance change on that chain. And then it will send back the token IDs that the secondary chain should use to mint those new RESDL NFTs. That's how that state is kept consistent.
Nice. That makes sense. And we have another question coming in from Jacques B. Opiyemi, which says that where do we get that SDL from? Where is it coming
from? I mean, if you want to acquire SDL, you would go to the Uniswap pool. It's just really just like any other ERC20 token.
Nice. And then the staked SDL and the Stake.link, those can be used, and are those found across Uniswap liquidity pools as well?
So you can find an St.link link pool on Curve. I mean, that's the main place you'd find it, besides actually staking into the pool and having it minted.
Yeah. All right. Nice. Now, up next, Bocelli asks, what are some critical areas of the protocol that you would like auditors to get more attention to? You mentioned CCIP and that connection between chains. Is there anything else that auditors should be keeping in mind and to have a close eye
on? Honestly, I think that's really the biggest thing, because like the SDL pool is already deployed currently on ETH mainnet, and while it's been modified somewhat to support multiple chains, most of the core logic is like pretty much the same. So for sure, the most important parts would be the stuff that interacts with CCIP.
All right, nice. And do you get St.link when depositing into the pool, or only when your link tokens get staked?
You don't get ST-Link when depositing into the priority pool if there is already link in the priority pool waiting to be deposited. But you will receive it once your link is deposited into the staking pool. But let's say the priority pool was empty, then, and there was like staking space, then your link would just flow right through the priority pool into the staking pool and you would receive ST-Link. So I suppose to summarize that, yes, you only get ST-Link when your link is staked into the staking pool. However, you also receive ST-Link as a percentage of protocol rewards when you stake STL.
All right, nice. Up next, we have a question from Jorge Martinez, who says, was this developed while having local nodes for mainnet, Optimism, and Arbitrum locally? Great question.
It was not. It was developed using purely mock contracts.
Okay, great insight there. Then up next, we have Velislav asking that, just with a quick comment, super helpful, that if you're ever having a problem installing your dependencies with Yarn, you can use npm install. You can also use PnP, whatever is your package manager of choice for sure. Now we have a question from Ekios, who says, do you have any advice for someone who primarily has founder experience? What differences or features should be leveraged in Hard Hat? I'm not sure if you have any Foundry experience yourself that you could expand on there.
I don't have any Foundry experience, but I mean, the biggest difference obviously would be how tests are written. So if you don't understand JavaScript or you're not experienced with it, it might be a little more difficult to use it.
Okay, yeah, certainly. Probably looking at fuzzing or some interesting other functionalities that Foundry offers right off the bat as well. That would be different with Hard Hat. And deployment scripts, things like that would be a good job.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, you could always like move the contracts into Foundry and write your own tests and stuff that way if you wanted to.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so last question we have as of now comes again from Zumba Zoom57. And he or she says, the reward initiator is only in ETH mainnet. How will it initialize reward on other chains? Does it use CCIP for the same inside of that reward initiator contract?
Yeah, so you're right. The reward initiator is only on ETH mainnet. When it's called, it will trigger a reward distribution on ETH mainnet, and then it will also trigger a reward distribution to all secondary chains. So yeah, it triggers them both at the same time. So if you look at the functions that it calls, you'll see that it calls the staking pool, like update strategy rewards on the staking pool, which is what updates the rewards on ETH mainnet, and then distributes those to the primary SDL pool. And then it will call distribute rewards on the primary CCIP controller, which is what initiates the CCIP messages with the rewards to all of the secondary chains.
All right, very interesting. So could there be a scenario then where you have rewards being granted, say, double into all chains and have that be more than what the value is actually being rewarded?
There could have been an issue like that depending on how the contracts were designed, but that was the main reason that we used the rewards initiator to ensure that rewards were distributed to the primary chain and secondary chains in the same transaction. So a user couldn't, say, claim the rewards on the primary chain, then move their RESDL to a secondary chain before the rewards were received there, and then get double rewards.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, that sounds like a good invariant to make sure, to check through and make sure that doesn't happen.
For sure.
Thank you for that, Christian. We have one more question coming in from Ukena, And it says, what's the difference between the priority pool and the staking pool? Is there a correlation between them?
Yeah, so the staking pool is the pool that actually is the liquid staking pool. Like, so it accepts link tokens and mints Stake.link, the liquid staking token. The priority pool is built on top of the staking pool, and it's I suppose it acts as the interface between users and the staking pool, and it serves a few functions, which the main one would be Chainlink staking is limited in how much you can stake. So like currently Chainlink staking is full. No one can stake any more link. So people can queue their link in the priority pool. And then once space opens up in Chainlink staking, we have the priority pool connected to Chainlink automation, which will automatically stake link into the staking pool as space opens up. And then you'll be distributed Stake.link. And then the other interesting thing about it would be that it allows for people to withdraw without requiring native link withdrawals. So like currently in the priority pool, I think there's like 700,000 link, something like that, waiting to be staked. So if I, as a user, have an amount of Stake.link, I can just transfer to the priority pool and then receive link directly from someone who's waiting to have their link staked. So it just swaps the Stake.link with the link.
Nice. Very interesting. All right. Well, that seems like those are all the questions that we have for today. Christian, I want to thank you so much for your time, your wisdom, for taking us through all of these important concepts and topics, especially as auditors are starting the competition. This should certainly help them get started quicker and know where to look and how everything is tied up together. So extremely grateful for you for being here and for your time. And we're looking forward to seeing what are the outcomes from this contest and to ultimately keeping the industry more secure with every single uncovered exploit vector. So thank you so much, Christian. And if you want to say some last few words, certainly here's the time.
Yeah, I just hope that was helpful. And I wish everyone good luck.
Nice. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, feel free to come to our Discord. You can keep asking questions there, especially as the contest goes about. So excited to see you there and see what the results are for this competition. Have a beautiful Friday, team. Bye.